Is India the world's next big EV miracle or the next OEM graveyard? From Tesla's slow rollout to VinFast bold leap, global automakers are eyeing India like never before. And joining us today is Ravi Bhatia. He's the president of JATO Dynamics and one of India's sharpest minds when it comes to auto strategy. So let's unpack what's driving the EV rush to India. So, sir, can you tell us, with the US imposing tariffs on Chinese EVs and Southeast Asia increasingly caught up in the crossfire, India suddenly looks like neutral ground with a billion strong captive market and improving EV infra. And given this, what would you say about VinFast betting on this shift while Tesla is moving more cautiously? From your vantage point, what are the biggest strategic mysteries globally that lead Southeast Asian EV makers to view India as the next frontier?
So global EV makers like VinFast and Tesla, they see India's billion-strong market and improving EV infrastructure as a golden opportunity, especially
Mm,
with what is happening as you described in the US tariff and on Chinese EV. But
mm,
where they trip over generally is they underestimate the local players like Tata Motors, local players like Mahindra, Maruti Suzuki, MG Motors. So they have established themselves and they understand and read the Indian market well.
mm,
Indian customers have little bit of unique, preferences when it comes to car buying. First of all, it's the second largest investment for them.
mm,
Secondly, they are very clear that they want a flexibility when they buy a car. They don't want restrictions or limitations, or they want their degree of freedom. So when it comes to electric vehicles, especially the degrees of freedom have a friction, which
mm,
means I am not as comfortable paying the high price that I'm going to pay. I'm also not probably comfortable with the charging infrastructure readiness, because it's very clear that India charging infrastructure is still evolving. From the reports that we see and from the experience that we have, many of
mm,
these charging points are not even working, right?
mm,
So you read the market as the what we call in our marketing language as total addressable market. But when you
mm.
go from total addressable market to serviceable market, given what your products are priced at, the market becomes very narrow, and that's where they trip over.
Right. So when it comes to charging infrastructure, I sometimes see conflicting reports. Some people say that, like in the south, there are 100 for every 150 EV vehicles, there's one charger. But up north, they say the number is like 235 vehicles for one charger. That's what they're saying the public infrastructure is.
It
So that
is
would be one question. And the second question is like, can you go back to what Ford and other American car makers experienced versus Maruti, which Maruti Suzuki may have got the local market right. So in that context, could you tell us about EV?
Yeah. So let me first talk about your question about charging infrastructure, right?
Mm,
So the density of petrol pumps is what the customer is familiar with, right?
mm,
When I drive, my car runs out of petrol. My Google map tells me, "Do you want to check the nearest petrol pump?" And it's
mm,
never far away. Okay. But here, I just cannot rely on the Google. I have to go to my phone where I have 6 or 7 apps downloaded. Okay.
mm.
They tell me the information, but sometimes they tell me correctly that the charging station is how far away, but it doesn't tell me sometime whether it is working or not, and how
Right.
many charging points are free, and when should I arrive there so that I don't have to wait for 2 hours for the previous car to complete
Yeah.
its charging. It also doesn't tell me, are they going to charge me the peak charging rate or the low period charging rate, right? So all these are frictions, they limit my freedom to move. That is the reason the customers are still waiting and watching, while those people who have home charging, they live in a bungalow or they live in a flat in a society where they allow the chargers and they have charging facility at their office. They have a proper parking place. They can be comfortable, right? Because their trip length is 50 kilometers one side, 50-kilometer other side. But if I have to go from my home to Nasik, right, I'm not sure where I will get the charging. It's getting better, but it's not there. Your second question was about what happened to Ford and the companies that came to India, the American companies, but did not succeed.
Hmm.
I think it was important that, there is a concept in marketing which we talk about, product market fit. If you do
Right.
not have appropriate product market fit,
Hmm.
then you will never succeed. And the product market fit can take many dimensions. First of
Hmm.
all, did you get the product market right? Did you evaluate the segment size properly? Did you evaluate the capability to pay properly? Did you ensure distribution and after sales service properly? Right. I'll give you an example.
Hmm.
Why go only to American companies? Let's talk about Daewoo. Right.
Hmm.
Daewoo succeeded like nobody's business. Right. Their car was
Hmm.
very successful, but then suddenly the spare part disappeared. The company disappeared. Right. Even then, people continued to use that car for more than 10 years. But the same love and affection was never demonstrated for these American companies, because, first of all, their cars were expensive, they never met the criteria, and their head offices, first of all, did not understand why this 4-meter rule is not going away. And then engineering a car to 4-meter rule was very expensive. Then it goes into a vicious circle, because I worked with Fiat and I've also worked with Maruti Suzuki. So where it goes into a vicious circle is, your first launch goes wrong, then you start questioning every investment with a very, very careful eye. So the opportunity goes smaller and smaller and smaller, and as a result, investment also goes smaller and smaller. So your ability to dare and play goes very, very low. So
Right,
that's a
sir.
risk a lot of companies are facing, who have to walk away from Indian market.
Right. So, can you tell us about the 4-meter rule for our lay audience, and also can you tell us a little about your pricing intelligence and market data? Would you say that like the Indian EV buyer would be chasing value, or do you think there's this aspirational? People want the latest iPhone, they want the latest gadget. So, do you see a tech first feature playing in when it comes to EV? Would it be an aspirational buy?
Okay, so the battery is a significant proportion of an electric vehicle.
Mm.
Okay, it's significant, and that makes the electric vehicle. Assume the electric vehicle has no features, zero features, but it has a battery. It's already expensive, right? To justify that expense or the increase in cost, I have to give lot of value. Now, when I add lots of features like screen, which is a very infotainment screen, I add lots of safety features, I add sensors and lidars and level 2 safety, I am adding more and more cost on top. As a result, EV became comparatively more expensive. And why should I buy something more expensive which still has a friction? Right? So it is important for Indian OEMs, and I think Tata and Mahindra have got it right. MG got it right with Windsor when they launched reasonably priced electric vehicles. So when you launch expensive vehicle, like the case in point is the Tesla model, which was recently launched, that kind of puts it in direct competition with BMW and Audi, right? So then you have to see that model success in BMW and Audi comparison, and you cannot compare to say why it is selling less than Punch, because Punch is differently priced, differently targeted model. So what we do is we help the OEMs. In fact, a car is a complex equipment, so you have to compare the benchmarking. What is there in segment? What can you add as a differentiator? Now, when you differentiate your vehicle sufficiently and you price it properly, you are hopefully going to get the traction that you're looking for.
Right. And so when it comes to dealer networks, they've historically been the make or break factor for some of our OEMs. So with EVs and, direct to customer models gaining ground, do you think we'll see the traditional dealership model collapse, or will it evolve? Will it bifurcate? What do you see, sir?
Okay, so let's say I will see this from a point of view of a customer. Let's put the frame of the customer for a minute, right?
Hmm.
When I am looking for a car, my buying journey starts with an internet search, right? I start looking at the models that I'm looking for within my budget on the internet. Then I go and watch few videos to inform myself. Then I start reading some newspaper articles. Then I start asking my friend, and maybe I will go to some blog which is giving me some critical evaluation about the car. At this stage, I walk into a dealership, and I walk into at least two or three dealership because my basket is now three models.
Mhm.
Okay. At this stage, I am looking for a facilitator to help me overcome my confusion and shortlist one. So a
Mm.
good dealer is a good facilitator. He knows customer is confused by the choice. I have to help him arrive at a decision. So in addition to the product attributes, he also offers him assurances. Like I offer you a best deal, that's an assurance. Second assurance is I offer you good service. Third is I have so many customers that my workshop is always going to be around. So there is an assurance plus facilitation. Now, once the car is sold and delivered, he has to make sure it's registered properly, all documentation is done properly, car is delivered in a proper way. After that, the customer starts living his car life, and he
Mm.
remembers the dealer only in two cases: when it's normal service due or it's a breakdown due, right? So, dealers play this very critical role. I don't think the automotive industry has already realized that there is no life without a dealer. Dealers are critical, channel is critical. So even direct to customer models are not delivering the bike on its own from the factory.
Right.
So in two wheelers, we have seen an interesting phenomena. The car dealers themselves uh, market their car on Amazon, the two wheeler on Amazon, right?
Oh,
So you
okay.
can buy it on Amazon, but again, the delivery will be from a dealer. So Amazon is becoming a channel for two wheelers. It's not happened to cars yet, thankfully. Uh, the other thing is the whole marketing effort still requires the facilitation. Therefore, a dealer still requires servicing that request and after sales service. So I don't think dealer is going to go away.
Right, sir. So, you've had a long, decades-long experience in the auto industry. So, you've experienced both sides of the Indian market, like Maruti's golden era with mass market dominance, and then FCA's repositioning in the premium space. So, in that context, how can you tell early, from data, whether a product is failing or it's doing really well due to the pricing positioning or like you said, the market fix, whether and now that the EV wave is rising, are we seeing similar early signals, particularly around infrastructure?
Yeah, I think we are in the age of internet, and I don't think when I was in Maruti, very early years, not later, but later, the internet and everything became very popular. But the first thing that you start seeing around is the pre-launch buzz around the vehicle, right? So
Hmm.
you launch a vehicle, you have lots of influencers jumping on that. So they will do their videos, they will do announcements about the car, what features they have discovered. Then you will start seeing some pronouncements on Instagram or Facebook and so on and so forth, right? So now customer is getting aware. Okay.
Right.
So the next thing the company wants to observe is, first of all, how much is the buzz, how much is the likes you are getting, what kind of conversation is happening in the chat of this video. So you know that, right? Whether good things are being said or bad things are being said, right?
Hmm.
Then you start your company website being visited by the customer,
Right.
or
Right.
a third party aggregator website being visited by a customer. So that gives you an early segment of interest of the market.
Hmm.
Now it's important that out of those people who are visiting websites, searching, reading, how many of them leave their name and address with you? And
Ah,
when they leave their name and address with you, do they respond to the call or do they not respond to the call? Right? So I'm
right.
thinking of a funnel really where I did simulation or stimulation in the market by videos and advertising. Some people started visiting my website. That's called the early interest. Then he
Hmm.
filled a form, which means his interest is better. Then I contacted him and he responded. Then he agreed to visit a dealer. Then he agreed to take a test drive. So in mass markets cars, cars like Mahindra, Tata, the launch buzz itself gives them 3,000 to 5,000 bookings, and on some case ridiculously high number of bookings, right? So they have a order book
Mm.
already there before the car is in the showroom, because the reputation of the product is preceding the launch. But for companies like, which do not have this kind of traction in the market, or loyal fan base in the market, launches are very quiet, and they have to
Right.
really work hard, right? So then comes the play of saying how attractive I can make my product, how much value I can offer. Should I go niche and keep that niche very happy? So
Mm.
companies like Maruti don't talk about fan base, because the whole country is their market, everybody is a fan. But a
Okay.
company like Fiat used to talk about fan base, because the base is so small that you have to call it a fan only, right? So,
Right.
so this is happening in when you are going niche, you are looking
Mm.
for passionate people who are willing to take risk with your brand.
Right. Right.
Maruti is a
And
safe buy, Hyundai is a safe buy, Tata is a safe buy, maybe Mahindra is a safe buy. But the moment you go the other side of the spectrum, there is some passion which is required to overrun the logic of buying simple, easy, well tested.
right, right.
And
No,
if you are
now that you talk
experienced,
of risk, I was just remembering what a friend of mine had told me. He had taken his Maruti right up to Ladakh, and I asked him, "How can you do that?" And then he said, "No, because I'm sure that there are service stations everywhere. Maruti has got like literally service stations all across India that people are so confident that even if my vehicle screws me over in Ladakh, I'll still get like help." So
yeah.
coming to that, sir, like given that like Maruti, so much of what Maruti was price, like are brands like EV brands, are they betting on the rupees 20 to 40 lakh segment? So once it was considered, a no man's land. So what does JATO's data say about this mid premium space that is evolving in India?
So the belly of the Indian car market, which means where the maximum number of buyers are there, is around the price range of 9 to 10 lakh 30,000.
Okay.
That's a belly. After that, it's a narrow pyramid, right? So
Hmm.
20 to 30 is much more narrower than 8.5 to 10, because then after
Okay.
10 you have 12 to 15, then you have 15 to 20, and then you have 20 to 25. All the while it is getting narrow and narrow. And now we have seen that the profitability is higher as you go up in the price. Volumes are lower, but profitability is higher. So more and more companies are trying to target higher end segments, right? But there, the moment you go higher, the choice widens, and the customer is an experienced customer. So when I talk about 8 lakh rupees, and so maybe I'm getting a first time buyer, but I don't think in 25 lakhs and above I'm getting first time buyers. They bought the car, been there, done that, they have enough experience with cars, right? So they are also getting more particular about the features the car is offering. They are not so much worried about service, they are worried about the package. Is Does this distinguish them in their market? So you will have less and less people buying a 25 lakh rupee Maruti,
Right.
right?
Right.
You are looking for something different at that price point, because you've been through the Maruti range already. So
Hmm.
Maruti's average weighted price is significantly lower than the market average price,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because Maruti is not, it's not easy for Maruti to go and compete in the high end,
Hmm.
right?
Got it, sir.
So I look at companies like VinFast and Tesla, which are first of all launching in very high end, and they are looking at a very narrow market,
Right. So,
right?
but
So
also this 20 to 40 lakh segment. See, the previous generation, at least my parents and grandparents, would think of the total cost. But I think like my generation, we're thinking more of the monthly EMI. So if the monthly EMI on my iPhone is affordable, I'll take it. If the monthly EMI on my bike is affordable, I'll take it. So can you talk about monthly affordability, sir? Are
yeah,
we
so
underestimating the shift towards, it may be unaffordable, but I can afford it for this month?
let me tell you that the difference between phone and the car is as follows. When you buy a phone, you are done with the EMI.
Mm.
When you buy a car, you still have to pay for charging, you have to
Mm.
still pay for servicing, you have to
Mm.
still pay for insurance,
Okay,
right?
huge.
So the EMI is not direct EMI, but there are certain operating expenses as well which go along, right? So
Mm.
when a car buyer is looking at the car, he's not looking at just car EMI.
Mm.
They are looking at, okay, car EMI is say 20,000 rupees a month. but I also have to buy, say, 3% of the car is insurance, which I have
Mm,
to pay every year. Then there is breakdown services. Then there are maintenance services. And what if I have to pay premium charging? So all that is going into customers' mind.
mm,
Loan is still 70%, right?
right.
You look at the market. This belief that this generation is looking at EMI, they are always going ahead and ahead. But I think the uh, the buyer has to realize that it's not iPhone. It's more than that. You have to change tires, for example. You don't change
Mm,
tires on your iPhone, right?
that's
And
true.
tires are very expensive. So you have to think of the TCO rather than initial purchase cost. When I say
Right.
TCO, I mean total cost of ownership.
Got it, sir. So earlier in our conversation itself, you referred to American automakers like Ford and GM. So in the last 2 decades, we've seen big brands like Ford and GM pull out despite their deep pockets, while Maruti Suzuki with its early roots and obsessive localization became a market giant in India. So looking ahead, do you see India becoming a serious global export hub? Given that at least for phones, we are seeing that like happening with iPhone. So do you see it as a global export hub, like a thriving EV consumption market, or is it going to be a repeat graveyard for foreign OEM miscalculations? So, what do the patterns and cycles you've tracked over the years suggest?
So let me look at the phone, right? So phone manufacturing is not as distributed as car manufacturing.
Mm,
Phone is small item, can be dispatched easily and distributed easily across the world, even if you make it only in China.
mm,
But car is a bulky item. It needs a big car carrier ship to distribute,
mm,
right? So the reason why OEMs have factories all over the world is because car is bigger,
mm,
right? So when I export, where do I export? Do I export to markets? Because okay, I succeed in export. Why? Because I'm cheaper than what is being marketed there, or I'm so much better that people are willing to pay the transportation cost also. So export is not easy. India is trying to grow its exports. Maruti is succeeding in a way because it's a cheaper car, right? So Maruti makes low cost cars. Not
mm,
many other countries now make low cost cars. So there are markets like South Africa, or there are many other markets where Maruti is able to export, and Maruti is doing very well, by the way, right? So Maruti has
mm,
grown its export in a significant way. If you listen to the
mm.
analyst recommendation, they are recommending the stock because Maruti has been able to export,
Right,
right?
right,
But will we become like China or Japan? The answer is no.
right, right. But aren't there also some unexpected success stories? Like I saw Bajaj like doing really well in Latin America, and even when I went to Southeast Asia, I was so surprised to see that 70% of the vehicles on the roads were Bajaj, which was not what I was expecting to see. Like that, like you go there, you're seeing Bajaj, then you open your app and it's Red Bus. So it seems like Indian, you can see Indian brands everywhere, like even when you travel. Uh, so are we underestimating like India's potential as an export hub?
Would you say there are few markets like this or many markets like this?
Like Latin America and Southeast Asia, I
Yeah,
guess like
like
a few.
yeah,
Yeah.
few, correct, right? So the
Yeah.
world is very large. So
Mm,
what the export manager does, international export manager does, is he reviews the market, and
mm,
then he sees, okay, I'm making this kind of Bajaj bike, and this Bajaj bike will be very popular in this market. So let me develop that one market, because he still has to sell a container, right?
mm.
You can't sell
Okay.
5 bikes and they say, okay, let me throw 5 bikes in every country and see which one responds. You can't do that. So there
Okay.
is very careful study. So we work very closely with the automotive OEMs and giving them that country's market data.
Right.
So,
Got it.
so we tell them what is popular. For example, if somebody wants to say sell their electric vehicle in UK now with the FTA, right? So, but they
Yeah.
need to know what is the UK market, what is the pricing in UK, what is the customer buying in UK. Is he used to buying a standard configuration or is he going to buy options? So
Mm.
all that data is required before you make a decision to open a market. And I would say the example that you gave me is a is you can take the map of the world and see where Indian vehicles are going, and you won't be able to color the map, India.
Adequately. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So this is like patchy segmented data, right,
It
sir?
is always like that. It's always like that. But China has taken a decision to say, I have so much capacity, I'm going to try to get into everywhere. When they try to
Mm.
get into everywhere, what does the government do? So the government in America did what? They blocked them. They tried
Okay.
to
All the
resist.
tariffs.
They tried to resist them, right? Because the local
Yeah.
manufacturing is also important. So some countries in the world do not make cars. They are
Mm.
so small in potential that they cannot put a factory, so they agree to import. Australia is a great example, right? Australia has no manufacturing.
Right. This is so interesting, sir. So any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think first closing thought is India is a very promising market. Okay,
Right.
it will continue to grow. There will be no serious negatives happening in the Indian market. We can
Mm.
always argue whether 4% is good or 5% is good or 8% or 10% is good, but it will continue to grow. Second is Indian buyer is aspirational and also is becoming wealthy, so the average car price will continue to grow. And there'll be an interesting phenomena where the entry level buyers will start shifting to used cars. They will no longer buy new cars because the new cars will become so expensive, right?
Right.
So that's a transition we are beginning to see. Uh, it's great to see companies like VinFast coming in, Tesla coming in, BYD coming in. It's awesome, right? You are able to see the technology. But I'm
Mm.
hoping that Indian OEMs will take this as a opportunity to learn about the technology and build very strong competing products.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. Like everything that you've said sounds positive for India, at least. Like we're going to be seeing more car makers, like more car models on the road, and hopefully less traffic if that miracle can be achieved. So, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Sure, sir.